Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches, where we cover 5 of the most interesting data breaches from this last week and one of our favorite bourbons. I'm Steve.
Divya.
I'm Matt. I'm Connor.
I'm Frank.
Great. Divya, what happened this week?
Okay, guys. So first BNB of the year. So congratulations. Welcome to our new crew member, Matt, right here.
Woo!
Yay, don't drink yet. But let's get, I'll allow it. Okay, let's go ahead and get this year started with some spicy stories in 2023. I'm going to start with one of the spicier stories, but then we have the spiciest for the last. The first story of the evening is the Twitter breach. The first data breach of 2023, Twitter email leak, and unfortunately, just a couple of days following the end of 2022, another data breach, Twitter has occurred. More than 200 million Twitter users had their email addresses posted on underground hacker sites. I feel like there were more than 400 million. And it's been an insane time for Twitter. So what are your comments about this story?
So from my understanding, this is related to or similar to a breach that was announced near the end of last year. The big interesting part of the story is that a hacker started trying to sell 400 million accounts that they downloaded or scraped or accessed through Twitter's API. I don't know exactly how they got it. They started trying to sell it, but then they either got bored and decided to leak them, or somebody else leaked them. Anyway, they're out there, they're leaked, they're being shared heavily for free. So congrats to the hackers.
How does this relate to like people getting laid off and Elon Musk's takeover and whatnot?
It has to be related, right? I mean, I think it doesn't have to be, but in my opinion, it brings attention. It brings a mindset of focus towards Twitter from the community, and somebody took action.
To my knowledge, the data may have been accessed before Elon bought the company. I don't know if we have any clear line of sight as to when the data was taken, but it certainly was leaked heavily beginning of this year. Frank, you're intimately involved, not involved, allegedly, you're intimately aware of this data leak. What do you know about it?
I have nothing to do with it. That was not my fault. I think Paul talked about this sometime over the week. The seller of the leak was directly threatening Elon Musk by using GDPR's potential fines as a sort of a leverage. Like you're already in the verge of paying a fine for the 5.4 million breach. Remember that? Buy me or face a 400 million users breach fine.
Yeah, it's fascinating when they can use, it's not really ransom, it's more just blackmail, right?
Exactly.
It's not ransomware, it's just blackmailing them because if they release the data, it's a fine.
So I have a spicy question. Could this be a previous employee of Twitter?
I feel like there's no reason to believe this took an insider. Twitter's had a number of instances where hackers have been able to use or abuse Twitter's API to get access to data that they shouldn't have. And so I think that this falls well within the realm of a hacker yet again found a way to exploit Twitter. But it is fascinating that the hacker is now threatening that they'll do something and Elon will be fined rather than, hey, pay me for a ransom.
And that's, to me, that's really intriguing, because it almost, you think about it that way, it almost starts becoming like a lawsuit plea deal. Like you know there's a certain number of, there's a certain dollar figure associated with these users. So if you want to settle with me for half of that, it's not worth taking it to court, right? So it's very interesting to play that route.
Is it illegal? Well, let me rephrase. Obviously, the data breach and the data leak, all that is questionable legality. But if you threaten to release data, or else they'll be fined if you do, it's a weird legal argument, right? Because it's like, hey, I'm gonna release this data, and then you're gonna be in legal jeopardy, not me. So it's a weird situation.
As opposed, go ahead.
Does GDPR define the amount of damage they're liable for?
No, the GDPR has some vague, like 3% of revenue or like $10 million cap. So
Depending on like company size and revenue as well too, right?
GDPR is all about like the investigator and what the investigator decides.
What's interesting is this is almost another example of government interfering and setting a price similar to like pharmaceuticals. By getting involved, it actually puts a number on what that damage could be, and it would kind of set that for the overall market.
So there are some state governments that put a certain fine per account.
I think New York is one of them.
There's some laws that are coming into place that are putting a minimum price per account. And so, yeah, if each account's worth $10, then 400 million accounts is a pretty expensive data leak.
I feel like, Frank, you have something to say and add on to that.
No, I was just remembering the hacker was asking for or saying something about a 260 million fine, if I'm not wrong, but I think that was pretty much the number he put on the 5.4 million breach.
Yeah.
You know, threatening like this would be much higher.
But we've seen with prior breaches that the amount per account or per person can change wildly, right? Like Wawa, they had a giant breach and a leak, and then they just sent everyone like a $5 Wawa gift card.
Yeah, great business model, by the way.
And by the way, if you give someone a $5 gift card, they're likely gonna spend more.
Right.
You can count that as a marketing expense and actually make money from it, right? So there's certain data breaches where people have actually made money from the breach. I don't think this will be one for Twitter.
I'm gonna move on to the next story. So in this episode, we've got two very spicy restaurant chains that have been they've been subjected to this breach. So I'm going to start off with Five Guys Enterprises, and they announced a data breach impacting personal data of job applicants. So on December 29th, Five Guys Enterprises LLC filed notice of a data breach with the various attorney general offices across the country after learning about a cyber attack that compromised confidential information related to the individuals who applied to work for the company. Based on the company's official filing, the incident resulted in an unauthorized party gaining access to job applicants' full names, social security numbers, driver license number, and financial account information.
And socials.
And double down on
Is it
that. She did say that.
You did? And socials.
Say it twice, say it twice.
Okay, yeah, and social and pant size and shoe size, apparently. So anyway, comments, thoughts, because I got a lot of comments about Five Guys.
Good burgers.
Yeah, so I like Five Guys. They have a reputation for being very expensive. Evidently applying for a job there is also costly.
Yeah, I mean, here to that point, I mean, you try to get a job to pay the bills, and the next thing you know, your identity's stolen, your bank account's drained, and if you read the article, they're repercussion was sending letters out. So, I mean,
Yeah,
very costly job application, and the response is, here's a letter saying you might be breached that you might get 45 days later.
I think this is a clear case where they're gonna have a class action, the class action is gonna win, and by the end of it, they'll be able to afford eating at Five Guys.
Five Guys is giving away information like they give away fries.
yeah.
They don't get 20 prize though.
That's a fair trade.
$20.
Dude, that's the move. But I'm talking a little bit about, like, it's based in Virginia, right? So I believe that that's one of the states that has kind of like come around, they have not.
No,
Okay.
Virginia, I don't think they're doing anything with data breaches. They're certainly not disclosing them publicly, so. We probably heard about this from like Montana, like, surprise to everyone, like Montana is the one state pioneering like data breach disclosure. So if you aren't up on that, Montana's like, yeah, if you expose a single Montanan, then you have to disclose it. And so that they're the ones that announce who's been breached. So I'm sure it was like Five Guys in Bozeman.
Hannah, Montana is not safe, just.
Felt that.
You're a dad.
That was real bad. Yeah, Frank, what do you think? Como se dice Five Guys?
It would be like cinco muchachos.
Cinco, but for Amber Gesa.
Yeah.
This is saddening to me. I mean, I've been told they are very good.
You know, they're kind of like burger joint over
Yeah,
in Palermo, Soho.
Yeah, burger.
but they are not here, so I've never tried that. I can only hope they don't get hit too hard for this. At least not before I try their burgers. But speaking seriously, speaking of big fines, I'm sure Five Guys can take it. But many companies get in serious trouble dodging hacks and disruptions, mainly related to production. You know, a German electric bike manufacturer named Profit faced bankruptcy a couple of weeks ago after many weeks of insolvency due to cyber attacks paralyzing their production. Yeah, I know this is not the case, but an avalanche of fines and lawsuits can be hard to dodge as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. Most small businesses, maybe not most, but a lot of small businesses that are breached go out of business. So this can be a catastrophic event. I don't think that'll happen to Five Guys, but it is a concern. But I think, you know, with Five Guys being breached, that's bad. But it's really bad for the people that apply, right? And I question why socials, driver's license numbers, and bank account information was one required to apply for a job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of weird,
Yeah.
yeah.
And two, all kept in a place hackers could access. So
Yeah.
I don't know any of the details, but I've never really heard of a breach where job applicants have had that level of detail required or exposed. And so I find that interesting. I think we'll probably see a class action lawsuit. We'll learn more about this ongoing. You know, the victim here is clearly just the job applicant, right? You want to work somewhere, you apply for a job, you assume your information is going to be safe, and then a hacker gets in and steals all of it.
Yeah, that kind of sucks because that kind of information really is tallied with like your HR accounts or, you know, like documentation regarding that. I don't think I've ever really used social security numbers or driver license numbers to apply for a job. So one part makes me wonder if it's because like they offer delivery. That's just a thought.
I've put social and driver's license number on a job application. I've never given them my bank account.
Financial.
Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah, so,
I mean, it might be including people that have gotten actually hired
Yeah.
as well. It has to be a mix.
the HR system should
Yeah.
be separate, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't have anyone's driver's license number and I don't want it,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So that's weird.
Agreed.
All right,
It's time for a bourbon break. Great. So, welcome to the new year. And in this new year, we're gonna be trying a very interesting bourbon. This is Isaac Bowman's straight bourbon whiskey that's finished in port barrels. So here, let me get real close for you, B. There you go. Nice shot of the bottle. So we've had Bowman Brothers before. So this bottle may look familiar, but it tastes very different. Divya, what do we know about this bourbon?
right, so guys, I'm gonna go ahead and share this screen right here, and I really have some questions actually about this bourbon. So,
I do too.
okay,
I have many questions.
off to a spicy start.
Yeah.
So first of all, Steve Meter kind of reads that it's acceptable, but not necessarily fun.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, great. So that's just my reading of the Steve-O meter. But Isaac Bowman, Virginia straight bourbon whiskey, port barrel finish. The bourbon is aged in charred white oak barrels, then finished in port barrels, some that come from Virginia wineries. This combination of finishing barrels produces flavors of jam with caramel and spice notes. Isaac Bowman is produced in a similar fashion to our Abraham Bowman port finish bourbon, which won World's Best Bourbon in 2016. 92 proof, 46% alcoholic volume. Is this right? Price point? 30.
It was about that. Yeah,
Okay, so
That's
on
fine.
Line, we go to their page 33.99 in Texas. They kind of like supplement the summary saying that it's full of jammy fruit notes, balanced with the enticing aroma of vanilla, brown spice, and toasted pecans. Bold and sweet with the toasty notes of French and American oak, rounding out to a long, smooth finish that lingers. It says it's small batch bourbon, but I didn't really get that kind of feel from it. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's do this. We've got 3 people here that are trying it, let's talk about what do we smell, what do we taste, and then we can give some hot takes, because there are some. So what do you think on the nose?
I'm not much of a bourbon connoisseur. I have a bad sense of smell, but if anything, a little vanilla. A little vanilla, maybe a little nutty vanilla, like,
It's not terribly aromatic.
I agree.
It's pretty subtle.
Yeah.
I get oak. I get maybe a little bit of sweetness. How about on the taste?
It's smooth. I think it's smooth.
To me, it's just spicy.
Yeah.
It's not even like it's just kind of like a spiced rum almost as a whiskey. It sounds, I don't know, that's an interesting take,
It's good.
but yeah, that's my take. Compared to last time. I'm not doing any comparison.
I'm not getting any jam, that's for sure.
Yeah, like,
But I do get the vanilla and I get the pecan only because you said it. I probably wouldn't have said that if you didn't tell me beforehand. But I mean, that 92 proof, it goes down smooth to me.
Yeah, I just don't like it.
I'm not a fan either.
Yeah, so like, here's the thing, we've had Bowman Brothers on this show,
yeah.
and I love Bowman Brothers. They sell a $26 bourbon, that's great, and I love everything about it. It's nice, it's sweet, it's simple, it's good, you can drink it straight. I don't like this.
Too much flavor.
I feel like they took a good whiskey and they stuck it in a bad port barrel.
Yeah.
Like, I like whiskey, I like port, So you'd think I'd like port whiskey. No, I do not like this. And I really want to know what the master distiller was thinking. Cause like, so we've had the IW Harper Cabernet cask. Super good, love it, right? You can age bourbons in interesting barrels and get interesting flavors. And like, I just don't like it. It's the port flavor tastes artificial. It doesn't blend well with the bourbon flavor. Like, it's both distracting and annoying. And also, I don't feel like I'm getting much out of it. So like, I'm not, like, it smells fine, but I taste it and it's like, no, I'm just not enjoying it. It's rough. Like, I don't get smoothness at all. Like, I'm drinking it and at like 92 proof,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be this rough. Like, I drink it and I grimace.
So I have a question. I'm like that with wine, right? So sometimes when it comes to like port barrel or like barrel aged wine or something, it tastes really weird. And I'm like, why is this doing this? I know you really like the Cabernet cask. Do you think that?
No,
And,
I've had port finished bourbon before and it's been great. I think this is a case where the devil's in the details. They had a good bourbon and they had a shit port barrel and they came up with like a worse product than what they started with.
Yeah, do you think they just had so much of it, like of the port barrels that they were just like, you know what, let's try to sell something out of this product?
I think that honestly, somebody thought they did a good job. I think somebody made this and was like, yes, mission accomplished. And maybe their palate's different than mine, but like, no.
It could also could be a marketing scheme too, because I mean, it's
No,
very trendy.
No,
Yeah. Well, so
Usually,
This
it's a
is-
small batch, but you have, like, another-
they're directly distilling this. This is their bourbon.
wow.
That's embarrassing. So I could have forgiven it if it was a mistake, like
Yeah.
me speaking like I'm the fucking bourbon drinker.
Well, I'm thinking back to when you had, I'm gonna plug the Dickel we had last time, the bottled and bond. Can't plug.
You don't like it?
I
You're
love
gonna plug the Dickel? No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead and plug that Dickel.
all the five guys. Okay, I'm going to quickly plug
Uh-huh.
the Dickel
Yeah.
branded whiskey
Yeah,
that we had last week or last time we did this. It was a 100 proof, not a 92 proof.
well, it was bottled in bond, which
Bond.
means it has to be 100 proof.
Yes, and it was extremely smooth.
Mhm.
Much smoother than this.
Yeah.
By a long shot.
Yeah,
It was honestly fantastic, but that being said, I would expect a 92 proof to be a little more smooth.
you mentioned how much has been consumed. I've owned this bottle for months.
Okay, so say that next time. So like SIVO meter, like it's like the
You,
proportion.
you were guessing,
Like, it's like,
but like,
is it 2 days or?
so what I would
17
do
months.
is every other week, I'd be like, maybe I'm wrong. Let me try it again. And then I'd try it and be like, ugh,
You
no.
never think that's
I still don't.
See, you
like
never
it.
think that.
No, I kept giving it a chance. I was like, maybe it'll be better this week, and it was never better. So, like, I really like Bourbon Brothers. I highly recommend people buy Bourbon Brothers. Just not this. Sorry, I tried mixing it.
Yeah.
No, just doesn't even.
No, that's pretty sad.
And that's been the Bourbon Break.
Okay, wonderful, guys. I'm gonna move on to story number 3. This one also comes in from a food chain and probably some of y'all's beloved food chain, which is Chick-Fil-A. They're investigating potential fraud after alleged data hacks. Wait, okay, so this is what you need to know about the suspected Chick-Fil-A data breach. Bank account and credit card information was leaked. It was leaked through their app close to 9,000 people were potentially affected.
Kind of. Not really.
Not
We don't know yet.
Okay. Here's what's up. Here's what's up. So I've been talking about this ever since I started Hack Notice. Hackers do this weird thing where they love to take over accounts that have loyalty points and card balances for restaurants. You'll go into a hacker forum and a hacker will be like, hey, yo, it's Chick-Fil-A, go eat. And they'll post 5,000 accounts, all logins for Chick-Fil-A app that have either enough credits for a burrito or they have gift cards on it. This has been happening for years.
That's right.
Hackers love to share free food. It's weird. Like the hacker community is all like, yo, you want to eat? Here's your food. You want some free education? Here's your like Udemy account.
It's not
Like-
World Food Bank, is it?
That's
Hackers just love sharing free food. And
that's
so
the
the
thing
people,
within hackers.
yeah, there's these people that are just like, yo, I'm hungry. I'm gonna take someone's Chick-fil-A account and get some free chicken. And so that's what's happening here. I don't believe that Chick-fil-A was infiltrated. I believe that a hacker ran a successful password stuffing attack, found 9,000 logins that worked. And I saw the post. They were posting them in order of the Chick-fil-A balance. And so they were sharing 9,000 accounts that all had a positive balance, and other hackers were just eating for free for weeks.
Are you clean?
Honestly,
I'm
that's
silver status.
Take his account, get some free chicken. So here's the thing. So Chipotle's been dealing with this for years, and you know what Chipotle does? They reimburse every account. So none of the customers have any of their stuff stolen. Like the Chipotle's just like, hey, your account was taken over, here's your stuff back. And so the hacker eats for free and the customer is not hurt because Chipotle's like, we'd rather take a loss than have a pissed off customer. So cybercrime's a $6 trillion industry. Credit card companies eat billions in fraud each year. They write it into their business plan. They have a budget for fraud. And so this has been happening in the industry for so long that it's now expected. Chick-fil-A is going to have to do what Chipotle did. They're just going to have a budget for fraud. They're going to say, we're going to be the victim of $1 billion worth of fraudulent, like stolen chicken points, and we're gonna have to like reimburse them. So it's probably not gonna be $1 billion, it's gonna be like $1 million or 10 million, something like that. But the consumer's not gonna be hurt by this. The business is just gonna write it off and no one's gonna deal with it. I talked to a major online payment provider, and they had tried to implement multi-factor. They forced it across the business and they lost so many customers that they turned it back off and they just decided to eat the fraud, right? And so I don't think there's any, like Netflix, as soon as they said, hey, we're not gonna let you log in from multiple places, they started losing subscribers. So the fact of the reality is if you make security an impediment to revenue, like it's not going to work. Your CFO is going to say, stop that. Like, we don't care. Just let it happen and we'll write it off. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen at Chick-fil-A. Moving on to story number 4.
This is kind of interesting story. So imagine if Spotify got breached, but in Canada. So I'm the worst.
Yeah, French Canadian, maybe.
Yeah, Quebec.
I didn't even know what this was until someone I knew was like, yo, have you seen the Deezer breach? And I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Like we didn't know how
220
Amazon
mil.
Music or how it works, but
It's a big one.
sorry, Jeff Bezos. Deezer admits data breach that potentially exposed over 222 million users. Info. France-based music streaming platform admitted to being hit with a data breach that potentially compromised information over 220 mil. So
Title that.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Here's still blank. So first of all, things called Deezer. And I'm kind of curious if this breach and Twitter breaches are related, because I'm kind of wondering how many people these are asked to sign in using their Twitter account or something, because
Was
these
that
are-
even a thing?
it's not, I'm just asking.
Okay.
Like, it's really like a large number of breaches that happen very closely to each other, so I'm just trying to see if there's any correlation.
I wouldn't expect Deezer to be related to Twitter. You do bring up a good point that Twitter has been trying to promote itself as an authentication provider. Obviously, that now seems like a dangerous thing to do. For Deezer, it looks like a very traditional breach. They got in, they stole all the data. What? Oh yeah, this was an older breach as well. So Deezer got breached a while ago, and it's just now that it's being leaked. This said 2020. What I saw from hackers was 2019. So I think this is just, you know, when you run a service like that, it's really you can very quickly amass a lot of users. But the more users you amass, the more, you know, the concern is about hackers getting in.
So since they're France based,
Mhm.
does that mean GDPR higher risk of that?
Yeah, so it says that it affects users in France, Brazil, the UK, Germany, Mexico, Colombia, Turkey, the US, Italy, and Guatemala.
I think it was worldwide.
Yeah.
I know somebody in Miami that was impacted by this breach. Yeah, this could lead to a large GDPR fine.
Yeah.
So that could be a pretty big concern.
Story number 5 for the brand new year is obviously my favorite, Office Space, a movie that I have not seen. Because I'm not old. Office Space fired engineers theft scheme. Police say the authorities said a software engineer in Washington State stole more than $300,000 from his employer and named the scheme after the 1999 workplace comedy. The funniest part of all of this was that the engineer Armando Valdez Castro, 28 of Tacoma, Washington, did not watch the entire movie because all the evidence in the workplace comedy was destroyed in an office fire. Homeboy said, "Hell no! I'm gonna name my scam Office Space on my folder on my desktop," and that's how he got called out essentially. He edited code to divert shipping fees to a personal account, manipulate product prices, stealing about $260,000 in electronic payments and more than 40,000 merchandise. I know you all have hot takes about this. I know somebody in Austin who was like an extra in the Office Space movie. Talk to me about this.
So Office Space, filmed here in Austin.
Represent.
The premise was they were gonna steal fractions of a penny. Obviously they got caught and they burned the building down. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the 20-year-old movie. And it was based on like a Superman 2 plot point as well. So it wasn't even original to Office Space. So this guy clearly didn't pay close attention to the movie. This is a clear case of insider fraud. You know, insider threats. If you give someone access to payment processing and they can easily slip in code where they receive the payment, that's I mean, there's so many compliance violations, so many ways that they should have been able to catch that. Evidently, they did catch it, so you know those checks and balances worked. But this is a big example of why you need to be careful about the threats from within.
I have one quick take. If this guy was clever enough to do what he did, he wanted to get caught because he would not have put the master plan titled office space on his desktop.
So there's dumb, smart people, right? There's people that
I
are
don't know.
smart from a technology standpoint,
Yeah,
but
that's
dumb
dumb
from like every other aspect of their life. And this seems like one of those where he was smart enough to steal money, but not smart enough to like not put his plans on his desktop.
But
You know, evil geniuses can cope with not people not knowing how did they do it. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the reason.
I mean, this seems like the type of fraud that is happening a lot and we just don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've heard stories about like people taking money from companies and whatnot and not getting caught. But this homeboy just really said, I'm just gonna call this office space and nobody's gonna like really look, look into what this folder contains. You brought up one point, which was insider threat, right? So how does one navigate, number one? So it seems like this had been going on for a while, and how does one really navigate that there's like somebody involved if nobody else knows about what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you can't just let a single engineer change how payments are handled. Like that, you can't have that. So payment processing, if you're not good at payment processing, you need to use someone else, right? You need to use a third party that's trusted and has governance controls. But if you're going to do your own payment processing, you need to have some safeguards, like one engineer writes the code, another engineer reads the code, another engineer like approves it, and then another one, like you need to build checks and balances. And clearly that wasn't the case. Somehow this one engineer was able to say like, oh, all of this money is mine now. And that stayed in production for I don't know how long, but long enough to amass hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is a clear case of like, now here's what should happen with insider threats. You need all of your employees to be aware of insider threats, be looking out for it and letting the security team know, right? Like if I saw Frank with a brand new Bugatti and I was like, that's weird. I wonder how Frank earned enough money for a brand new Bugatti. Like, I'm gonna go tell the security team that they should check out Frank, right? So that's how it should work for insider threats, because there's no way the security team by themselves will catch it.
So tell me a little bit about like how you kind of manage situations where, you know, it's like an insider threat, but it's not necessarily like you don't really know like how to go to a security team, because obviously homeboy could not have just been sitting on this and just like been getting away with it. He has to have told somebody in the company. How does somebody really approach that kind of conversation and let like somebody know that I feel like something suspicious is happening?
Yeah, I think, and I'll ask Frank, I think that anyone within our company feels very comfortable identifying fraud or insider threats or phishing, right? People bring that stuff to me all the time. I think you have to build a culture of collaboration and like letting people know that something suspicious is happening. And if you don't have that culture, then it's going to be very difficult. Like Frank, if you saw some fraud, like would you feel comfortable pointing it out?
Of course, always.
Yeah. Or are trying to fix Frank
Always
all the
sounds.
time, and Frank's constantly sending me his phishing emails.
drawing back to that, because like sometimes, like you mentioned that people would bring it up and like it would, you know, like people would say that, hey, I'm kind of like uncomfortable with this kind of situation. So many times you've gotten like Steve Thomas is messaging you or emailing you, right? How do you feel about people who just go down that rabbit hole? And then, you know, obviously with like security training, that's kind of what they're doing, because they're like, oh, if you see this email from Steve that says abcdef@gmail.com, do not respond back. But if they see it from a different domain, they respond back. So how do you think like training is really lacking in that front? Because I feel that once that your information has been breached, you have to immediately attack that person. And I feel like training is lacking.
Yeah, so a lot of people have to sit through training videos and they're like, hackers exist and they're after you. And that's it.
The keyboard.
Right? And I think a big difference is what we do here, and we say, look, Frank, you just joined Hack Notice. You're going to be phished this week, right? Like someone's gonna pretend to be me and they're gonna say, Frank, my good sir, send me your phone number. I have important tasks, right?
Kindly.
Yeah. Kindly, please, thank you. And so like we let people know that they are personally under threat. They're going to be targeted. And businesses need to be doing that instead of training or before training, right? Like Frank, if you joined Hack Notice and we were like, yeah, like we're a fun place and sometimes Steve sends you weird emails, just do whatever he says, right? Like you would be phished all the time. We also have a code word, right? A safe word. And so don't tell people the safe word. And so you know, we're prepared for the eventuality that someone's going to pretend to be me. And so like we're very skeptical and paranoid, and we don't just respond to emails. And I think that a lot of businesses could use a bit more of that. This has been an episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches. If you liked everything you saw today, thank you, B, for editing. If you hated everything you saw today, well,
It was not my fault.
Look, it's the beginning of the year. It's only going to get better from here. Until next time.